Hello, welcome to another stream. You'll see here today I have two Chris's here to talk to you about some of the development for LumaTouch. But before we get started, I wanted to remind everyone that we have a contest going on that you can submit a video to us, edited on LumaFusion, showcasing your favorite summertime activity. And we'll take a look at those and we'll announce the winner of that contest next month. So if you have a video about your favorite summertime activity, or if you're in a place where it's not summer, your favorite activity to do right now, send that to us at info@luma-touch.com. And I'm going to turn it over here to the Chris's.
All right, thank you, Josh. I am Chris Damaris. I am the co-founder of LumaTouch along with Terry Morgan, and I'm also the head of development. Our development team is based out of Salt Lake City, Utah, but myself and Chris Morrissey here are visiting for a couple days to catch up on things up here in Seattle. Tell them about yourself, Chris.
Yeah, so I'm a developer at LumaTouch. I get to work on LumaFusion, where I get to add features, fix bugs. I also do a bit of support, so answering questions for folks who use LumaFusion every day.
Great. All right, well, today we really want to talk to you a little bit about the development process at LumaTouch, because it's one of the things that makes our product and what we do unique. So first of all, I want to talk a little bit about what makes LumaFusion powerful and what gives it the lightning fast performance in editing. One of the things we do at LumaTouch in the development process is use something called Agile. And Agile development is a way of developing where, one, we organize what we're going to develop based on the priority to our users, based on how quickly we can do it, and most importantly, we work on making sure that every story that we work on is going to be finished before we release it to users. And that really makes a difference in what you see and when you see it in our app. So first of all, I'll talk a little bit about some of the parts of LumaFusion. So we have an engine underneath everything we do, all of our products, LumaFusion and LumaFX, and it's called the Spry engine. Started working on that back in 2013 and started releasing products based on it in 2016. This engine was really designed by people who have been in the industry for 30 years, a 30-year editor, and myself working 30 years doing visual effects and video editing products. Spry Engine's unique in that it really takes advantage of the technologies that Apple provides and builds on top of that to give you fast, fluid work with video and 6 tracks of video and audio. And there's no other product out there that's doing that right now. And it's made possible by what we've done under the hood there. Next, another thing that we've done that really makes the product unique is we've integrated with a wide variety of services and devices that no other app gives you. So we have built-in integrations with the Western Digital Wireless Plus and the Narbox drives. And in fact, the new Narbox 2.0 is ready to ship and coming out soon. And we have a great integration with that. That's going to make a really good, big difference for how you get your media in and out of the app, which that workflow is just as important as being able to edit. You know, getting your media in, getting your media out, and where you want it is a big part of what makes LumaFusion unique. And then finally, one of the things we added recently that's become a big part of the app is Storyblocks. Storyblocks is an integration with a large content library that you can use for B-roll, for music, for sound effects, anything else you want. That's the one subscription we provide. It's an optional subscription. You don't have to have it to use the app, and you can get your media from other places, but it's an incredibly convenient way to get media into the app and be able to find what you want to make your video perfect. So, Chris, why don't you tell us a little bit about one of the biggest questions that people have is, when are we coming out for Android?
Absolutely. So as Chris mentioned, we rely a lot on the Apple frameworks. We built the Spry engine on top of that. And that's something that at the moment simply isn't available for Android. So right now, LumaFusion for Android isn't possible. We continue to investigate whether or not putting something, that type of foundation on Android is possible. And we really won't have more to say until we can answer that question. So we're doing some investigations, doing some research on that, but don't expect that to pop out anytime soon. Once we find out it's possible, then we've got to make the decision, is that something we really want to do and invest in? Because laying that foundation, then transferring all the code over to the Android side is going to take a lot of resources. And we have a ton of things to do on LumaFusion.
That's right. Yeah, in fact, that sort of leads to a really nice segue to one of the big things that's coming up this fall, and that's iOS 13. It's adding a massive new amount of features to both iOS and the new, quote, iPad OS, which is a big change to one of our biggest platforms, editing on iPad. You were at WWDC. Do you want to talk about a little bit about what you saw there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was lucky enough to go to the Worldwide Developer Conference that Apple puts on every year. This year was particularly exciting. There were a number of features that came through that were, I think, folks from LumaFusion, or folks who use LumaFusion are going to be very excited about. So I'll talk about a couple of those and pass it over to Chris, who will talk about the rest of them. The first one that I saw, I did get to talk to some of the Apple engineers on the floor there, as well as listening to a bunch of the talks. So the first one that I want to talk about was Apple's put out a new specification for HEVC with an alpha channel. So that's something we've been missing. We've had to do chroma keys for the lifetime of LumaFusion. And this will be something that once it's put in place and others adopt it heavily, we'll be able to import and composite with an alpha layer, even output those things, and it'll make it a lot more easy to create content for LumaFusion. So I expect a lot of folks are going to be very creative with what can be done there, and it'll reduce the amount of chroma keys that you have to do.
So for our layman individuals who don't know what an alpha layer
Yeah.
you know, what does that allow us to do in LumaFusion?
So this would be very similar to what you can do today with titles. So you can bring in a graphic, a still picture that has a title on it and then blank in the background. So that allows it to lay over the top of layer over the top of the track below it. So you can essentially have your title on top, you can do keyframes and the rest. So this will allow us to bring in a layer of video that can bring motion, and that can allow you to do a lot more things and provide a greater experience for the folks who are watching your videos.
Great. That's really good. A couple of the other features that are really big in iOS 13. Of course, there's dark mode, but the interesting thing is we've always been dark. So but we will make sure that the app runs both in dark and light mode the way you'd expect it to, and that it runs perfectly that way. But the biggest new feature that we've been talking about, and I'll talk a little more about today, is the external drive connection. So with iOS 13, you'll be able to plug in a USB-C drive, or if you have the Lightning adapter, any USB drive, and what you'll be able to do is actually access your media directly on that drive, and that's going to change the whole dynamic for how you manage your media. So if you have one of these wonderful little SSD drives and you're putting all your media on there, you can now access it quickly and instantly, and we've done an incredible integration with that in LumaFusion. It'll show up right in the library, and you can pick which drives you want to connect to and what folders within those drives you want to connect to, and then you'll be able to browse your media just like you would in Photos, for example. And you'll be able to drag and drop the media to the timeline, and we'll immediately bring it over to the iPad or the iPhone. Now, we've been experimenting to see if it would be possible to edit directly off of one of those drives and not have to bring the media into your device and use the storage of your device. We're getting a little bit of mixed results on that. It is possible, but the performance isn't quite there yet. But what it does is it gives us hope for the future that we're going to be able to do that down the road. And so I don't think we'll have it out this fall, but it's something we're continuing to investigate. And we always like to be on the leading edge of what you can do on an iPad and iPhone, so I can assure you, if it's possible, we'll make it happen. Another nice feature that about the new features for USB drives is that it will also allow you to connect up to other apps directly from our library. And one of the best integrations for that will be the Filmic Pro integration. So you'll be able to, in LumaFusion, select the Luma or the Filmic Pro folder and directly access the media that you've captured in Filmic and use it in your timelines. You won't have to go through the process of sharing it from Filmic, getting it over to LumaFusion, going to the imported folder and finding it. It'll be just instant, and it'll always there as soon as you finish recording. And I think that's going to be a really big workflow improvement. And then another nice one is fonts. One of the things we've always supported is for users to be able to import custom fonts into LumaFusion, but it's not always the easiest thing to do. Apple has now made that standard, so you can bring in fonts from the App Store, and there's other ways you can get fonts in, and they'll show up in all apps within your iPad or your iPhone. And we've already looked at that and implemented it so that you'll see the new wonderful font requester that Apple's designed and be able to select the fonts for your titles very easily and quickly. What else can I talk about here?
I think that was most of what was going on. There are a lot of lower level code features that we're really excited about, but quite frankly, these are the things that are going to pop up and folks are going to notice when they're using LumaFusion. I think the alpha layer is going to be exciting, but boy, that iPad OS with the file system improvements, I think everybody's been talking about that.
Yeah, that's incredibly exciting. So I'm going to take a step back now to things, the way we decide to work on things like bugs and new features. And it's all driven by what I said before. It's called the Agile process, and we look at each bug that comes in or each new feature, and we give it a priority based on how many users it affects, how big of an effect it has on them, and we begin working on them that way. And one of the ones that I think some of our users know is that sometimes users will have export problems. It's not all the users, but there have been a high enough percentage of it where it's been something important to us for a long time. Well, the nice thing I can say is we've been working hard on that, and we've come up with a new way of doing export that is showing incredible promise, where we, rather than export the entire timeline in one big chunk, we export segments of it, what are called slices, and that seems to be resolving a lot of the issues that we've had. It'll be a little while before that's available, because as usual, we're refining it. We're going to make sure it's 100% complete, but I think that's going to make a big difference for users who have experienced that problem, and I assure you, we are continually working on making sure that you'll never have problems with the app. You know, software will always have bugs, but we'll continue to work on it until we have no bugs at all is our goal.
Yeah. In the meantime, continue to use the Optimize and Consolidate tool.
Absolutely.
That takes care of virtually, I'd say 75 to 90% of the export issues that we have. It's one of the things that does come through in support. So if you go to the project menu, select the project, you can look for the tools there, look for the funnel for Optimize and Consolidate. That'll take care of some of the issues with media that just isn't working on an export standpoint. And if something comes up that you can't solve, contact us at support, and we'll walk through and do what it takes to get that project out so that you've got your final movie.
Great. So I'll have you talk a little bit more about a big feature you've been working on that's coming soon, and it's one that a lot of people have been waiting for and we're really excited about, and that's Final Cut Pro XML export.
Yeah, so people are always asking what's next, and that for us is XML. So what I'm doing on XML, we've got the basics in place, so we can take our project, we can do an export, and you've got that project showing up in Final Cut Pro 10. Now what that requires is we've got a way of describing the project internally. Final Cut is a way that they describe internally so that they can take all of the clips, all of the times, and mash those together to output the final movie. And so we've got to go through with the basic underpinnings. Chris has put in place a nice foundation for us to export our process and put it into the XML format, which is just simply the language that gets translated across into Final Cut Pro. So what I've been doing is layering on each of the additional features. So we started off with the Agile process. We made sure one clip went over. Then we made sure one track went over, then we made sure all of the video tracks went over, then all the audio tracks, and continued through that. So we've been doing that. We've got all 12 tracks transitioning over, all keyframes, so the animations, rotations, picture-in-picture is working. So actually it's quite full-featured at the moment. It's in beta testing, and we're getting some very good feedback on that. What we're working on now are some of the more finicky features. So I've been working this week on transitioning speed over. So if you have most of you may know, been doing video editing, 30 frames per second, you start playing around with the speed of that. It becomes difficult to know which frames are coming through, so we're making sure that when you export with a clip, that when it goes into Final Cut and it's supposed to be 50% speed, it comes over in 50% speed and you get the frames that you're expecting. So that's the one that we've been working on. Actually nearly complete, made some good progress even this morning on that. And then we'll switch over to continuing to work on XML, and per the Agile processes, we pick off all the features that we need to. When that's done, then we'll be able to release that for everybody to use. It's a big feature. Now to start with, we're validating that for Final Cut Pro 10. So to the extent that everybody in Vegas and Avid and all the other places where you can import Final Cut have made a very good implementation of their importer of Final Cut, this may work, but we're going to start off with and we're going to validate versus Final Cut Pro, so that's what you can expect. And then later on, as we have some more time on that, we'll go back and we'll catch the premieres and the rest of it.
Absolutely, that's going to be really great, and we'll make sure that anybody can take a project that they're working on, and if they need some finishing on the desktop, they can get it there, and it'll give them a really nice workflow there as well. Another feature that's coming out very soon that we've been working on, that's for a different type of collaboration and a different type of work, is the Frame.io integration. Frame.io is a great collaborative tool for getting review and approval and making comments on videos. And we've done an incredible integration with that where, again, all your media that's in a project that you're working on with Frame.io shows up in the library. And when you export a project, it'll go up to Frame.io and others can make comments on that. And those comments will show up immediately in our preview where you can look at them, see both the text of the comments, but also graphics people have drawn. So for example, if a color is not right, they can circle that color right on the screen and you'll see that in your edit. So it's a great way whether you're a small boutique editor who just needs to get feedback from a customer who may not be in the same building, or if you're on a small team, it's a great way to collaborate on videos. And we think this is going to be a really big addition to professional workflows. So that's going to be great. A little farther out on features, I'll talk about a few things we've been working on that people have been interested in. One of the big ones that we get a lot of requests for, and so we've been working on it, is video stabilization. Now, video stabilization is one we had working in beta a little bit, but we weren't happy with the results on it. So we're still working on it, and we're going to find the right way to do it and have it out as soon as possible, but as soon as it works well. And so that's something we still want to make sure we do right. But we assure you we're working on that, and that's an important one to us. Another one that will be coming fairly soon that people have been asking for is blending modes. I don't know exactly, it might come as part of the fall release. We don't know exactly when, but it's one we are comfortable with. And we feel like that's gonna be a fun one for people to do some really nice new, virtually do compositing within LumaFusion, and I think that'll be a lot of fun. It'll be easy. Noise reduction is another one, both for video and audio noise reduction. I think video noise reduction will be coming fairly soon. Audio noise reduction is one I can assure you we're working on, but it's a little ways out, so we're still working on that. And yeah, we'll introduce those new features when they're ready, but we are always listening to you as the customer, to find out what you want and find out what's most important. And I assure you every feature that we've been requested or every bug that we've heard about is in our database and we will work on it. It just may not be as quickly as you particularly want, but we're listening to you. That's basically what I want to say. So, yeah. So that's what we mostly had to say today. And well, let's find out from Josh if there's any questions.
What about masking? People were asking about.
All right, well, I'll answer on that. Masking is another one that we do have the feature requests on. That's a little farther down the road. We'll start with blending modes, which is sort of like a first step that we can do towards, towards all of these compositing features that people are asking for. And again, the HEVC with alpha will, in a sense, give you quite a bit of that functionality without having a full masking capability. Masking is one that's a big enough feature that it's almost a product in itself. And so we're working on it, but it's a ways down the road.
If a customer submits a feature, how do they know how far along it is in our process of being decided on?
Yeah, that's one that's a little hard to be public on, honestly. We will, we're fairly open about what's coming in the next few months, and we try to do that. And I would just recommend to them to contact us back again, and we'll let them know as close as we can what we're working on. But honestly, with so many features that we have available, that we want to work on, we can't make that available to public because we don't know when we're going to release it is one of the biggest things. Like with video stabilization, we got pretty far down the road and we thought we were going to release it within about a month and then decided it just wasn't the implementation that our users wanted, so we had to back off on it and put it out longer. So we're a little cautious about that particular choice.
Yeah, try not to in support emails commit to when we're going to do it.
Yeah.
Because we don't know the scheduling and we don't know if it's going to work or if it's going to be good enough to make it through the Agile process.
Absolutely, yeah.
Another question feature related, and can you repeat the question after I say
Okay.
it? What about speed ramping and tracking?
Okay, speed ramping is another one that's been asked for quite a bit, and it's another big project. Because we work on Apple's foundations, they have some built-in capabilities for basic speed control, but they don't have the same abilities to do speed ramping, so it's something that we would have to do internally, and to make that real time is a challenge. So I assure you that's fairly high on our priority because we have a lot of requests for it, but it's one that we still need more time to work on. The other one was object tracking. That's actually a favorite of mine. I really want that in as soon as possible. It is one that will come in that's not super difficult, but we need to do some things with, for example, the titler. One of the things I think people want to use that for is to have, say, a title following a person. It's one of those cool effects that people use quite a bit. And so we have to actually make some changes to some of the other components like the titler to make it a worthwhile feature. So yeah, I assure you that's another one coming. Again, I can't give you a date on it.
Yeah, fair number of conversations on those two for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
After Final Cut, what would be the next editor that we might consider looking at XML for?
Yeah, I think the two that are top of the line would be Premiere and Blackmagic Design. Those are the two that we get the most, requests for. So, Sony Vegas is another one. We're working with them actually directly on possibly the XML or even a direct export to that that's a different format. And so we're super open to making sure we support all of the editors that people are using out there. And so this is the first step towards getting that.
Absolutely. But I'll remind folks, that stuff is tricky and we've got to cover every edge case. So despite how well we're doing in XML, there are still bugs that pop up. So it's going to take us a little bit. And then each individual program that we're going to, if their implementations are off, it's going to take us a bit to get most of it.
Are there any possibilities of transitions or any kind of effects-related stuff people can look forward to in the future?
Yeah. Do you want? Yes. Now, one of the big ones we have that I think will probably get out really soon, maybe as part of the 2.1 release, is the ability for users to create their own transitions and add those to their library. We have a nice little editing. It's just a simple project that you set up. Create the transition, by keyframing the different elements, the A and B source clips that are coming in, and then you're able to say export it as a transition, and you'll be able to share that with other users, and they'll be able to have those transitions, in their app as well. And we'll probably create some nice new transitions also. So we've had some requests for very specific types of transitions that I think we'll get to. So yeah, that's coming soon.
Yeah, I think that'll be a big improvement, and folks are going to love that.
Absolutely, yeah, that's a big one.
Here's another platform-related one. Could you ever see LumaFusion for something like Windows or Mac?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take that. Mac is definitely a possibility, and Apple's been adding some new technologies that would make that possible. Again, it comes down to the details on that. I think we could get something over, but to make it feel right like a Mac app is going to take longer time. Windows would be a bigger piece of work for sure. Totally different platform, different AV, foundation that's built on top of. And, our focus is also more on mobile, honestly, and that's another key component of this, is that we would love to see people be able to do everything on a mobile device that they would do on a desktop, so they don't need the desktop. When you're sitting on a plane and can pop out your iPad, it takes up a lot. In fact, on the flight over here, it was sort of funny because I had out my computer to work on some work. Chris had out his iPad. When they brought drinks, he could have his next to him, on there. I'd have my drink on top of my MacBook Pro. It's a little dangerous. So we hear from a lot of users who edit on the plane and sit back. You can sit back under a tree and edit. So our goal is really not to bring editing to the desktop where it already is, but to make sure that our mobile editing has every feature that our users want, and we're working hard towards that.
And we haven't talked about it on this stream, but for audio, are there any possibilities like being able to sync audio automatically or do any other cool features with audio?
Yeah, absolutely. First thing, sync audio is something we are working on, and we're working on it in conjunction with a bigger feature that we're going to be coming out with. But also, we're working hard to bring back third-party audio units. That's a really exciting one. It's one we had way back, but we found them unreliable and they were causing problems in our app. But we've come up with some ideas to make sure we can mitigate that, but still give people the possibility to use those third-party audio units that do specialty functions that we're not going to be able to write, and get some really cool new features that way. Audio is a big focus. After this export thing that we're working on, audio is probably our next big focus to make sure we get everything right on audio.
And it looks like we have time for one final question. Do we now have motion savings with custom titles?
Motion. I think they're probably talking about individual motion on title layers. Just to let you know, you can, once you've built a title, you can animate the entire title to fly on, fly off, add effects to it, do some weird twists or whatever you'd like. But we currently don't have the ability to animate each individual title layer. However, I can tell you that this person right here has been put in charge of that exact feature coming up in the future. So we will be starting to work on that very soon after we finish FCP XML. That'll be his next focus.
Absolutely. It's going to take a bit, so please have some patience.
All right, thank you so much. We appreciate your watching this live stream, and keep in contact with us. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.